The microphone whined at exactly 8:45 in the evening. My father, Daniel Brooks, stood under the dripping crystal chandeliers of the Charlotte Country Club, raising his champagne glass to 300 elite guests. He smiled his perfect, camera-ready smile. Then he leaned in to the microphone and announced he was officially cutting me out of the family trust. His voice echoed across the ballroom, smooth and practiced, dripping with a toxic kind of fake pity. He told the crowd my childhood dyslexia and attention deficit diagnoses were developmental defects, tragic limitations that meant I could never handle the immense pressure of the Brooks legacy. The room murmured in polite, practiced sympathy. Before those whispers could even fade, my older sister Megan grabbed the microphone. She giggled, her diamond earrings catching the ambient light, and announced she was evicting me from my small starter home the very next morning. She claimed she needed the land to expand her driveway, phrasing it like a hilarious little real estate joke. The country club crowd actually chuckled. I stood by the service doors in the back. My hands gripped the cold brass handle of the exit. My knuckles turning entirely white, I forced my breathing to stay completely steady. 32 years of being the family scapegoat trains you to build a fortress in your mind. I am a high school guidance counselor. I deal with entitled, manipulative bullies every single day, and I recognize an adult toddler throwing a tantrum when I see one. For years, they called me slow. They called me the invisible child. But being invisible meant they freely discussed their toxic schemes right in front of me. They thought I was too stupid to understand their financial maneuvers, their hidden accounts, and their leveraged debts. They gave me the exact blueprints to their own destruction. I changed my last name to Bennett years ago to distance myself from their circus. But tonight, they dragged me back in. I released the brass handle and walked forward. The heavy thud of my heels on the hardwood floor cut through the polite applause. The crowd parted. My father's smug smile faltered for a fraction of a second as I approached the stage, but he quickly recovered, expecting me to cry or beg. I walked straight past the microphone. I had no intention of making a messy, dramatic speech to a room full of strangers. I simply reached into my blazer, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and pressed it flat against my father's chest. He grabbed it instinctively. While Daniel and Megan were busy attending country club mixers and posing for Society magazines, I was the only one sitting in Grandma Olivia Brooks's room at the hospice center. I was the only one holding her hand when she took her last breath. And because of that, she left me something they never saw coming. Inside that envelope was the legal notification that Olivia had left me full. Unmitigated control of the $150 million Brooks Family Trust. Furthermore, the documents included a notarized 30-day notice to vacate for Megan. I was kicking her out of her multi-million-dollar mansion. My father stared at the papers, his face draining of all color. He opened his mouth to speak, to call security, to yell about lawyers, but he never got the chance. The gala's event manager, a nervous young man in a tight tuxedo, scurried up the stage steps. He leaned in and whispered frantically into Megan's ear. Megan's face went completely slack. Her exclusive black credit card, the one she used to hold the $50,000 catering tab for tonight's party, had just declined. My estate lawyer, Jason Hayes, had submitted the verified trustee activation documents to the primary bank at exactly 4:55 on Friday afternoon. the financial freeze was absolute. And it was already in full effect. I turned my back on them. Walking out of the silent ballroom without uttering a single word. 3 weeks passed. The initial shockwaves settled, and my small, quiet life in my starter home returned to normal. I spent my days counseling teenagers and my evenings sipping tea on my porch. Then my phone rang. It was Jason Hayes. The villains had decided to escalate. Megan and Daniel were not just going to roll over. Jason explained that they had filed an emergency probate injunction to freeze the trust completely. They submitted medical records claiming Grandma Olivia had advanced dementia during her final months, accusing me of elder financial abuse. They claimed I coerced a dying, confused woman into signing over the family empire. If their injunction succeeded, I would lose everything and face up to 10 years in federal prison. Megan even had the audacity to send me a text message later that afternoon. She wrote that she just wanted to heal our family trauma and that we all needed therapy. It was a pathetic smokescreen. Megan was not just greedy. She was terrified and desperate. Jason and I had done some digging. Megan had secretly leveraged her entire mansion to the hilt to fund a disastrous, failed lifestyle brand. She was completely broke on paper. Without the monthly trust distributions, she was used to stealing. She faced immediate foreclosure, bankruptcy, and total social annihilation. Daniel went along with the felony forgery simply to protect his country club reputation, entirely dependent on Megan's image as the flawless golden child. Together, they found a corrupt physician willing to forge retroactive medical evaluations for a hefty cash bribe. They thought they had outsmarted me. They thought I would panic and settle. Instead, Jason and I baited the trap. The emergency hearing took place in a sterile, wood-paneled courtroom downtown. The air conditioning hummed, but the tension in the room was suffocating. Megan took the witness stand, wearing a conservative Navy suit to play the role of the concerned, heartbroken granddaughter, and she placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Then, under oath, she confidently authenticated the forged medical document. She testified that our grandmother was completely delusional, unable to recognize her own family, and highly susceptible to my manipulation. She committed felony perjury and wire fraud right there on the official court record. Jason stood up, adjusting his tie. He did not object to her testimony. He simply asked the judge for permission to introduce Exhibit A. The bailiff rolled a large monitor into the center of the courtroom. Jason pressed play. It was a time-stamped video deposition of Grandma Olivia, recorded on the exact day she signed the new trust. Jason revealed that he and Olivia had smuggled a court-appointed independent psychiatrist into the hospice center disguised as a grief counselor, while my father waited in the hallway, completely satisfied that his mother was just crying over her impending death. Olivia was actually on a secured tablet recording a sworn legal statement. On the screen, Grandma Olivia looked pale, but her eyes were razor sharp. Her voice rang out clear and unwavering. She stated her full name, the date, and her exact intentions. Then she looked directly into the camera and explicitly predicted that her son Daniel and her granddaughter Megan would attempt to forge medical records to steal the trust. She detailed their past financial indiscretions, their pathological lying, and their complete lack of moral character. The color vanished from Megan's face. She gripped the edges of the witness stand so hard her knuckles turned white. Daniel slumped back in his chair, his hands trembling violently as he realized he had just walked straight into a federal trap. The judge's expression turned from neutral observation to absolute disgust. He slammed his gavel down, instantly dismissing the injunction and referring both Megan and her corrupt doctor directly to the district attorney for attempted grand larceny and perjury. The fallout was rapid and merciless. The corrupt physician, terrified of losing his medical license and going to federal prison, flipped immediately. He took a plea deal the very next morning, handing over every single text message, email, and bank transfer proving Megan ordered the forged documents. He completely removed any chance of her pleading ignorant. The judge sentenced Megan to 6 years in state prison with eligibility for parole after 4 years, along with a massive court-ordered restitution that wiped out her remaining hidden assets. Daniel was permanently exiled from high society. The public court transcripts circulated through the country club like wildfire, incinerating his precious reputation overnight. His friends stopped calling. His business partners severed ties. I fully secured the estate, officially changed the locks on Megan's former mansion, and sold the property to a lovely young family who actually appreciated the architecture. I never moved into the big houses. I stayed right here on the porch of my small, safe starter home. The morning air feels different now. It feels clean. I deleted their contact information from my phone, erasing their existence from my daily life. The noise, the constant walking on eggshells, the heavy, suffocating weight of their expectations, it is all finally gone. Months later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It had a state prison return address. Megan wrote a long, rambling, tear-stained apology. She tried to guilt trip me, writing about how we share the same blood, how she was a victim of our father's pressure, how she just wants her sister back. I read the letter standing in my kitchen. I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no pity, no lingering resentment. I calmly folded the paper in half, dropped it into the trash can, and went back to brewing my coffee. That is what true power looks like. It is not yelling or seeking vengeance. It is total, unbroken indifference. I surround myself now with my chosen family, friends who celebrate my victories, colleagues who respect my boundaries, and people who do not view love as a transactional currency. My life is peaceful, calm, and wonderfully light. Looking back at the wreckage of my family, I realize there are deep psychological truths hidden in the chaos. The golden child and the scapegoat are just two sides of the exact same toxic coin. Megan's cruelty was never real strength. It was a desperate, flailing mechanism to maintain a fragile status quo. My father's obsession with absolute perfection created a gilded cage that trapped her entirely. But my marginalization, my position as the invisible, overlooked disappointment, that gave me the ultimate freedom to observe, to adapt, and to build genuine resilience. If you are listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, there are 3 distinct rules you need to carry with you for the rest of your life. The first rule is that being underestimated is an incredible asset. When toxic people think you are slow, weak, or compliant, they take off their masks around you. They show you exactly who they are and how their machinery works. Let them think they are smarter than you. Your silence is your ultimate intelligence gathering. While they are busy bragging and plotting out loud, you are quietly collecting the receipt. The second rule is that boundaries absolutely require consequences. A boundary without a severe consequence is just a polite suggestion to an abuser. You cannot negotiate with narcissism. You cannot love someone into respecting you. True peace only arrives when you are willing to let the toxic people face the legal, financial, and social fires they set with their own hands. You do not have to pull them out of the burning building they built. The third and most important rule is that blood is merely biology, but loyalty is a conscious choice. True inheritance has nothing to do with trust funds, mansions, or country club memberships. True inheritance is character. Grandma Olivia did not leave her legacy to the loudest, most boastful person in the room. She left it to the only person who showed up in the quiet, painful, invisible moments. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name, trust is earned, not owed by default of birth. You do not need a secret millionaire grandmother to reclaim your life. You just need to stop seeking validation from people who are fundamentally incapable of giving it. So I have to ask you a question. If you have spent your entire life shrinking yourself just to make a toxic family member feel big, when are you going to finally step off their stage and build your own? Leave a comment below with the word enough if you are completely done playing the supporting role in someone else's delusion. Hit the subscribe button and share this story with someone who desperately needs to remember how powerful they truly are. I know exactly what you are screaming at your screen right now. You are asking, why on earth did Sarah tolerate 32 years of abuse? Why did she just stand by, quietly paying their neglected property taxes while they called her slow and paraded her sister around? It is infuriating to witness. But let me stop you right there. Sarah was not weak, and she certainly was not stupid. She was trapped in something psychologists call the slot machine effect, formerly known as intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up as the family scapegoat, toxic parents do not abuse you 100% of the time. Every now and then, they drop a crumb of hope, a rare, backhanded compliment, an invitation to sit at the edge of the country club table. You become addicted to that tiny chance of finally winning their love, pulling the lever over and over again, hoping for a jackpot of validation that never actually comes. Sarah was simply paying the price of admission for a game that was rigged against her from the start. But when that illusion shattered at the gala, Sarah executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let us break down her specific smart moves so you can apply them to your own life. First, she used the audit strategy. Scammers and narcissists absolutely hate details. They rely entirely on the illusion of wealth and control. By having her lawyer trigger the trust freeze at exactly 4:55 on a Friday, Sarah did not just cut off Megan's money. She forced an immediate, unavoidable audit of Megan's fake lifestyle. The second that $50,000 catering tab bounced, she used the bank's own friction as a weapon. Second, she mastered building the case. When dealing with manipulators, do not argue with them, document them. When her father and sister filed for an emergency injunction with forged medical records, Sarah did not interrupt them to defend herself. She baited the trap. She let Megan commit perjury under oath on the court record before dropping Grandma Olivia's time-stamped video deposition. She let the villains build their own prison cell out of their own lies. Finally, she executed the buyout. When Sarah officially changed the locks, sold Megan's former mansion, and deleted their contact information, she was investing in her ultimate freedom. Sometimes cutting off the cash flow and severing the legal ties is the only way to buy back your peace of mind. Here is the verdict. Toxic people will always view your boundaries as an attack, and they will use your empathy as a limitless bank account. Sarah realized that true power is not getting the last word. True power is walking away with the keys to your own life and locking the heavy door behind you. But peace did not arrive like fireworks. It arrived quietly. It arrived in the sound of my kettle boiling on a Tuesday morning, with no angry text from Megan lighting up my phone. It arrived in the way I could walk through my own hallway without bracing for Daniel Brooks's voice to cut me down. It arrived when I realized I had gone an entire week without explaining myself to anyone who was committed to misunderstanding me. For the first time in my life, I was not waiting to be punished. A month after Megan's sentencing, Jason Hayes called me into his office. On his conference table sat a final stack of documents for the Brooks Family Trust. Everything was clean now. Every account secured. Every property transferred. Every legal door that Daniel or Megan could have used against me had been locked. Jason slid one envelope across the table. "This was from Olivia," he said softly. "She asked that you receive it only after the court fight was over." My hands froze. Grandma Olivia's handwriting was on the front. Sarah, not Sarah Brooks, not the problem child, not the disappointment, just Sarah. Inside was a short letter. "My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, then they did exactly what I feared they would do. I am sorry you had to carry the weight of their cruelty for so long. I saw more than I admitted. I knew Daniel confused control with love. I knew Megan learned to survive by becoming exactly like him. But you, my child, stayed kind. You came to me when there was nothing to gain. You sat beside my bed when no cameras were watching. You remembered my tea, my blanket, my stories, and my fear. That is why I trusted you. Do not spend your life proving them wrong. Build something they could never understand. Use what I left you to open doors for people who have been told they are too slow, too difficult, too broken, too much. And remember this, a person who is sorry for losing access is not always sorry for causing harm. I love you for who you remained. Grandma Olivia." I read the letter twice, then a third time for 32 years. I had been waiting for one person in my family to say they saw it, not to excuse it, not to soften it, just to say yes, it happened. And no, you did not deserve it. That letter gave me something even the trust could not buy. It gave me confirmation. So I did what Grandma Olivia asked. I created the Olivia Bennett Foundation, named not after the Brooks legacy, but after the life I had chosen for myself. The foundation funded students with dyslexia, ADHD, and learning differences who had been treated like burdens instead of human beings. It paid for tutors, college counseling, emergency housing, legal support, and mental health care. I did not hold the first event at the Charlotte Country Club. That place had already taken enough from me. Instead, we held it in the auditorium of the public high school where I worked. The curtains stuck halfway. The microphone popped twice. The folding chairs did not match. But every seat was filled with students, parents, teachers, and people who knew what it felt like to be underestimated. When I stepped onto that stage, I did not feel like a Brooks. I felt like myself. My name is Sarah Bennett. I said, and for a long time, I believed my diagnosis was a verdict. The room went silent. I told them that needing extra time did not mean you were lazy. Reading differently did not mean you were stupid. Being overlooked by the wrong people did not mean you were invisible to the right ones. A boy in the second row wiped his face with his sleeve. A girl near the aisle sat up straighter. And in that moment, I understood what real inheritance meant. It was not money. It was interruption, stopping the poison before it reached another generation. Weeks later, Daniel called from an unfamiliar number. His voice sounded older, thinner, stripped of its country club polish. I saw the article. He said, I said nothing. Your grandmother would have been proud. That almost made me laugh. Even now, he wanted to borrow Olivia's voice to make himself relevant. She wrote to me. I said, the silence on the line changed. What did she say? That is between us. He exhaled sharply. There he was, still offended by any door he could not open. I am your father, Sarah, and I am aware of the biology. I have lost everything. No, I said calmly. You lost access to things. That is not the same as losing everything. His voice hardened. So now that you have the money, you are too good for your own family. The old Sarah would have panicked. She would have explained, softened, apologized, tried to make him understand, but I was not starving for his approval anymore. Goodbye. Daniel. I hung up. Then I blocked the number. My hands did not shake. That was how I knew I was free. Megan sent another letter from prison a few months later. She wrote that she was healing, that Daniel had pressured her, that we shared blood, that she wanted her sister back. I read it once. Then I placed it in a legal file and sent a copy to Jason. Not every apology deserves an emotional response. Some apologies are just another attempt to regain access. Years passed. The foundation grew. Students graduated. Some became teachers. One became a disability rights attorney. Another returned as a mentor and told a room full of nervous teenagers that being different had never meant being defective. I stayed in my small starter home. People kept asking why I did not move into one of the mansions. They could not understand it. But that little house had never laughed at me. It had never measured my worth by a last name. It had held me on nights when I had nowhere else to feel safe. To May, it was not small. It was proof. One evening, after a foundation ceremony, I came home carrying flowers and leftover cookies. I placed Grandma Olivia's letter on my kitchen table and sat beside the window as the sun went down. For the first time, I did not think about what Daniel had lost. Has someone in your life been treating your loyalty like a blank check? Drop your experiences in the comments below. Let us build a community of survivors who know their actual worth. Hit subscribe for more deep dives on how to protect your mind and your money. And I will see you in the next video.